March 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic swept across the globe, disrupting what many of us call daily life. Simple things that we used to take for granted. The coronavirus hit us and we weren't prepared. We never saw it coming.
To be honest, when I first heard that school was canceled because of the pandemic, well, not the soon-to-be pandemic, I was kind of thankful in a way that I didn't have to that I could get another week away from school. But as the time went on, it kind of became more serious, and that's when I realized how much I took for granted that I wasn't able to go to school. And by the end of that, I was kind of really missed school. And
being able to go to a restaurant or store without having to worry about wearing a mask or social distancing. There's a lot of precautions that we have to take now, and I think I miss being able to just go somewhere without having to worry about that. Trips and vacations are harder now, and we aren't able to, or a lot of trips were canceled because of the pandemic. So I think those are some of the main things that I miss from before, yeah.
Our biggest mistake was that we were too late. Too late to stop things, too late to take action. Many countries went on lockdown or took other measures to contain the virus. However, it was still spreading like wildfire. The virus itself was a severe and scary part of the pandemic, but most of the problem was the negative impact it had on the people.
My virtual academy experience has been kind of a roller coaster. There have been some good days and some bad days. Sometimes I just wasn't feeling the greatest. I missed my friends and it was just really hard. And I know that everyone is struggling, but just know that this is going to be over soon and we are going to get through this. And even though we can't see each other face to face, we can always support each other and just know that we can do this.
Adults were being stripped of their way of life, especially their jobs. They were forced to adapt, but it was hard.
I don't travel anymore. I used to travel for a living. I was a traveling consultant. Now I am working from home, using the technology to the fullest extent. I love traveling, so I hope the vaccination will speed up the recovery process and the life back to normalcy.
According to the U.S. Labor Department, more than 40 million Americans completely lost their jobs. Most people worked remotely, but some jobs didn't allow that. People with occupations like dentists and construction workers were unable to work from home. Even during the lockdown that they were in, people who were desperately in need of money worked through the unsafe setting. Many struggled financially the first few months of quarantine. To make it worse, businesses and companies were closed-fisted, so people who lost their jobs weren't able to find new ones. Children were left to manage themselves after losing their only form of structure in their lives, school. This resulted in odd sleeping and eating patterns that took a toll on their mental health and relationships with their families. Loneliness and isolation from the outside world were greatly increased.
Honestly, I think it's mostly my parents' motivation. They really also understood that it was a hard time for me just having to be logged on to Zoom for 8 hours. But I think something that really helped me from, say, overwhelming assignments was taking the right breaks and we didn't have a limitation of going out for a walk or getting fresh air, and that really helps.
My friends, and I would always call them on the phone, and I started getting going outside more and biking and playing sports.
One of the biggest problems was education. The COVID-19 outbreak created the largest disruption of education systems in history. Nearly 1.6 billion learners in more than 190 countries were affected. The closing of educational facilities impacted 94% of the world's student population and 99% of low and lower middle income countries.
I think our university handled the pandemic pretty well. They were very good about sending out emails that were giving information to all of the students and the parents and the professors, giving us a guide to how the semester was going to look, what specific activities were and weren't allowed, and they were really good about
helping the professors manage our course loads through Canvas. So it was a lot better.
I hate that I don't know some of our sixth graders. And of course, I miss the seventh graders, but with our eighth graders, I've been around them for 2.5 years now, and I don't get to see them. So that makes me really sad.
In the spring of 2020, most schools tried to get education going again. Frisco ISD resorted to a structure of assignments and homework. Students were worried that they would fall behind on their education because of the lack of direct interaction. So they were left to figure things out by themselves, with nothing but a list of homework they needed to finish for the day. The system wasn't perfect, but they were able to finish their school year.
Some things that I enjoyed about school last year were that our assignments were given to us in an agenda, and we could choose which assignments we wanted to work on and which ones we wanted to prioritize. Some things that I didn't enjoy were that we didn't have a lot of social interaction during school, because we usually wouldn't have daily Zooms, and I wouldn't talk to my friends a lot, so I would usually do my schoolwork alone, which would make my schoolwork substantially less entertaining and more boring. I also didn't like that we lacked instruction on our schoolwork, because we only Zoomed with our teachers about once a week, so all of our questions would be answered usually by email. Overall, I didn't enjoy my experience with school last year. I think it was mediocre, because even though I didn't enjoy it, I understood the situation, and it wasn't completely terrible viewing our circumstances.
I'd say virtual's a lot harder to pay attention in, but it's a lot more free. So what I liked about it is I could do all my virtual work in a matter of 2 hours, like really easily, because it was all up to us. We just got on, did the work, we're done. But in face-to-face, it's a lot different because you have your teachers there so they can explain everything. And honestly, it kind of showed me that without the teachers talking in it, it only took me maybe 45 minutes each class, if not less, actually. So, yeah, I definitely think virtual was more free to our schedule rather than being on, a period-based schedule. It was a lot easier to just, do one class, do the next class, do the next class without having any schedule, just doing it to your liking.
As time passed, the world was able to adapt to this new way of living. Cases were slightly decreasing, and stores and restaurants were slowly opening back up. Social distancing and masks became the norm whenever outside.
In the summer of 2020, Frisco ISD had planned a more organized online school system. They planned to have face-to-face school running parallel with what they dubbed Virtual Academy. This plan allowed the teachers to communicate and teach their students, which was a huge improvement from the school year before. Students that chose to attend the virtual school instead of face-to-face are safe from the virus, but are still able to learn.
Yeah, some people, when they choose virtual, it's really different because they're not used to it and all the computers and glitches and stuff. And face-to-face, again, it's really different because of the masks, and it's a big change. And I think the grades have been pretty different because we are not getting the full experience again of getting to learn, and it's sort of hard to hear the teacher sometimes because of the masks, and yeah.
You get to choose if you're being virtual or you're being in person, and there was just a lot going on. It was really chaotic, but as the year went on in 2020, it got way smoother. Teachers and students, we figured a lot out. Being virtual compared to being face-to-face, there's obviously a lot of differences, but the best part is that you're still learning and you're getting the school experience. It may be in a different way than usual, but there's still a lot of benefits to both sides.
Although having students go to a physical school is a large risk, it actually has been adequately moving forward. Most face-to-face schools are taking many precautions to ensure that everyone stays safe. Students and staff follow social distancing rules whenever possible, wear masks at all times, and use hand sanitizer often. In some states around the country, students have disregarded those safety precautions, causing outbreaks in schools and districts around the world. However, most states are handling this new change very well and are continuing to educate students in the pandemic.
Virtual learning has forced me to look at how I structure my day-to-day class and minute by minute, because you're trying to structure a class that lasts from bell to bell, and some of those activities require more time than others, and I actually do a little bit of over planning so that if students on virtual actually get through the assignment quicker than I anticipate, so that we have a couple more assignments or tasks that will help fulfill that learning objective. So I would have to say that it's definitely forced me to adapt in terms of preparing more and meeting the needs of the students.
I think some things that schools, not just our school, but education systems can change in general, is to stop pressuring both the staffs and the students. When they hurry up the material the teachers need to teach, both the students and the teachers feel pressured for the amount of work due.
I mean, for me, I get pretty distracted sometimes, but if we were face to face, I could be on track the whole time and learn about everything. And there's like internet issues too, so, and like right after the teacher leaves the Zoom, it's kind of hard to contact them because sometimes they might not respond to your emails, unlike in face-to-face classrooms, you could just talk to them right after and be easy.
Well, the perks are definitely wearing flip-flops and comfy pajama pants while I'm teaching is always nice. And being, comfortable in your own home or in, a whatever various location. I would go sit out on my porch and get fresh air where normally I'm in a classroom with no windows. So that, sometimes was nice. Being within an arm's reach of anything else that's in my house that I might need, which could have definitely been a positive and a negative at the same time. And it was a safe space, just going through everything that was so stressful. And just so much that was unknown and scary. Being at home was my safe place, and it made me feel like I was a little extra protected.
More and more students have decided to transfer to face-to-face learning in order to get more of a hands-on education. As the school year has progressed, COVID cases diagnosed each month have increased slightly.
I think learning face-to-face is easier because you have a better time of talking and communicating with your teacher. But learning virtual also has its perks because, you're in your own home and you're relaxed and calm most of the time throughout school.
Yeah, so in terms of just comparing, face-to-face instruction and virtual instruction, I think that, while virtual instruction does have its sort of merits or its benefits, I think, for me, I signed up to be a teacher because I wanted to work with kids, in real time, in the classroom, wanted to connect with them, wanted to see their, bright faces every day, wanted to see those light bulb moments for those kids who something clicks in their head. And you sort of miss that sometimes in virtual. You don't get to see that aha moment, or, a kid can't come up to you after a test and be like, man, I think I did really good on that. I studied and I did well. And so that sort of impersonal disconnect that happens over Zoom is rough. And so I think, and as a first-year teacher, this year teaching this way, teaching virtual, teaching, face-to-face, all of this it's been the only full-time teaching experience I've ever had. And I do enjoy that here in Frisco, we're able to have, classes just for virtual and just for in person. There are districts, there are some of my friends who they're teaching online and in person at the same time. It's split, half their kids are on a screen, half their kids are in the room. And so I think in general, being able to be face-to-face with kids, even with the masks and even with the 6 feet and all these protocols and parameters and, rules that we have to follow, I enjoyed a lot more, not least because those kids get to be somewhat around each other and to socialize and to interact. And I think that's so vital to their social development and their emotional development. And so not having that for them would probably be one of the sadder things that would come out of if we were, all virtual.
Here at FISD, both students and teachers were struggling to get used to the new routine. But as time passed, we were able to adapt.
I think something we could do to make our experience better is really just adapt to this new thing that's going on, because everything is changing so much right now. Everyone's taking it step by step. So I think that we could probably work on maybe adapting to our technology maybe a little more, and really making sure that we know what's going on with every single student, because I think there's a lot of things that we don't know are happening, and I think that would help a lot. But the school is doing an amazing job, and I've been really impressed by how they've handled everything.
But not all students were this lucky. In the second quarter of 2020, around 85% of children in average or lower income countries were still out of school.
I want everyone to know in this district that our students here have so much at their fingertips that a lot of school districts in Texas and other places do not have. And I don't want us to ever take that lightly, and I want us to take advantage of the fact that that is how we can be leaders tomorrow, is by taking advantage of the things we have available today that the district provides as resources for our kids. I don't want them to take it for granted. So, and I want them to also know at the same time, not everybody has that. So use it to your advantage and don't take it lightly.
However, schools in the United States are slowly opening again. As of March 2021, only 4 states remain partially closed for education.
I've met new friends and I've gotten 2 new teachers, and it might have not been the most enjoyable year, but at least I got to experience something, because soon I'll get to tell my grandkids about it or kids about it, and it was a nice experience.
I've really kind of changed my approach of it is what it is this year. Stressing about grades and missing work. I mean, I do all of that, but I don't think I stress the kids out as much about it because they have so many other things going on. So like as a teacher, I've tried to change my mindset of meeting them where they are and not trying to overwhelm them when we're already living in such an overwhelming time. A lot of them may not be able to see their friends as often. So why am I going to stress them out with a ton of work here? Give them some time to socialize. They don't always get that outside of school. Some still get to hang out with friends, so it kind of depends. We don't always know how their home life handles this pandemic. So I try to really allow them that time to socialize and just be kids, because they're 8th graders. Like, that's what they are. So I'm really trying to embrace that it is what it is mindset. That's kind of how I've adjusted.
Everyone has had to overcome some obstacles at their schools.
So we had our graduation at FC Dallas Stadium. We had to wait in a line 6 feet apart, and they had masks, but masks were mandatory. Once we got to the bleachers, we had to sit in chairs, 4 chairs apart, and we had to walk 6 feet apart at all times.
We've lost so much connection having to teach virtually. Even the face-to-face kids, because we can't do all the group work we used to do. We can't have the collaboration between them. The way that it's hard to collaborate in that genuine way on Google Chat. And so I miss that connection for them. And then for me, selfishly, I miss getting to know these kids. I miss getting to know the little things that make them happy. So like if they're having a rough day, I can remind them of that thing. I don't know a lot of the virtual kids that way to even try to be able to cheer them up. It takes a lot more work on both of our part to make that connection. I miss that.
Probably the thing that was the most difficult was when we started this new school year, because the spring we'd kind of just been thrown into it, and so a lot of our lessons weren't quite to the rigor as they really should have been. Although we were still teaching the TEKS and the things that we were supposed to be teaching, but then when we started school at the beginning of this year, because I'm an instructional coach as well, having to help my teachers with the things that they're dealing with, and then also having to deal with my own classes and the things that my kids are needing, it became very, very, I guess, demanding. And so I had to start making lists, and which I'm not a big person on lists, but that it's just something I had to do, because it would get to where I was drained, and sometimes I wouldn't have the energy that I needed to be an effective teacher as well as I should have been. But I've kind of figured all that out and figured out ways that I can still do that and help other teachers here at our school.
The whole world has been affected by this horrible pandemic, and we have to stay strong through it. Now that vaccines are being made, there's hope for the crisis to come to an end. However, people are still suffering, and there may be much more to come. We need to stay positive, push forward, and remember that this pandemic will end. As of March 10th, Governor Greg Abbott decided to lift the mask mandate and the capacity limit.
Even though the start of the pandemic was over a year ago, we should continue taking precautions at school, work, and just out in public to ensure the safety of ourselves and those around us. Remember, we are stronger together. Panther Nation, Panther Pride.